what's going on, everybody? Gerald here with your weather forecast. Hope you had a good week. You have made it to Friday, so that is always super cool to see. And good job, we have made it. Today's video is going to be pretty short for a couple reasons. One, I've kind of had an insane day, to be honest with you, so I'm having to move super quick paced. I got work right after this I have to go to, but luckily there's really not that much to talk about anyway, so we're not missing out on too much. And yeah, so that's really all I got for today's intro. As usual, of course, thank you for joining me. And yeah, super grateful for all of you guys. Let's go ahead and get right into it though, because like I said, I am super busy today. So looking at radar right now, we do have some lake effect snow coming into New England right now. Other than that, it is really quiet, really across the country. Especially compared to what we were dealing with during this week. Here's what's left over of that front moving through the southeast. So into sections of Florida, still seeing a little bit of rain ongoing down here into the Tampa area and Orlando, but really not too much to talk about in terms of radar. And you can see that on satellite as well. Look at these clear skies that we have out here into the southern tier of the country. In fact, there's a window that way, so all this light coming on me right now is from the sun because it is super clear out there right now, which is super nice compared to this week. I know for all of us here across the south, it has been just dreary or icy for some of you and just cold all week. Now at least we have some sunshine, although we are dealing with that very cold air. And that will continue into tonight, but the most of that cold air, or the brunt of it, is impacting New England really right now, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But once again, just looking at our hazards, really not much out there. We do have some winter weather advisories up here into sections of the Great Lakes just for some of that lake effect, and then we just have blizzard warnings up here into the extreme northern tip of Maine just for some of that blowing snow with that very strong front that has moved through the area. Looking at temperatures out there right now, you can see that Arctic boundary here kind of diving down into sections of New England especially, but even those sub-zero temperatures up here into sections of Minnesota, Wisconsin, even parts of Iowa, North Dakota. But really the brunt of that cold is impacting New England right now, and that will continue through the first half of this weekend. And then as for us here in the south, we have warmed up pretty nicely behind that front, although pretty windy and overall chilly. It's 50 here in Charlotte, so a pretty cold day with the wind blowing definitely makes it feel colder than it actually is. Wind chills right now out there, you can see up here in New England, just brutal right now. You're really getting the brunt of this. And even some of those windier conditions are working their way down here further south, causing those sub-freezing wind chills. So, you know, overall, a pretty average chilly February day, but definitely much better than we've had earlier this week. Looking at those temperatures tonight, very cold ahead for a lot of us behind this front, and especially up here in New England, but we'll talk more specifically about them here in a second, or I guess we'll do that right now, actually. So looking at New England right now, again, it is cold. That continues into the overnight tonight. As we get closer to the midnight hour, you can see these sub-freezing temperatures working their way all the way down close to New York City. That's how far south these below zero temperatures are going to get. Boston tonight, you could be, you know, this isn't even wind chill. You could be below -10. Wouldn't be surprised to see that at all tonight. Luckily, as we get into tomorrow afternoon, these temperatures, you know, begin to moderate, I guess, if you will. We do climb back up into the teens, likely into Boston. I think 20s are pretty likely here through Philly and New York City as well, but still a very cold February day. And then we'll have another cold night ahead of us on Saturday night. You can see those temperatures here getting down back into the teens, although luckily by the time we get into Sunday, we're already back into the 40s and maybe even 50s into the southern sections here of the Northeast. Looking at the wind chill values, they're going to, you know, correlate pretty well here with the temperatures. Whenever it's the coldest, the wind chill is going to be about the worst. So going into tonight, I think will definitely be the worst with the wind chills. Up here into sections of Maine, our latest models showing, you know, below -50 with the wind chills. Last time I checked on Mount Washington, it was like -90-ish with the wind chill. And I think if the statistic may be right now. Hopefully I'm not lying to you right now, but I think the coldest temperature ever recorded in New England as a whole is -50, and I think Mount Washington will get close to that tonight, so we'll have to watch for that record, see if that gets broken. But luckily, it does look like these wind chills begin to moderate going into tomorrow afternoon, and then especially going into Sunday, definitely much nicer feeling outside, definitely compared to Saturday at least. So, giving you a kind of nationwide forecast here on those temperatures this weekend. This is for Saturday. Again, a chilly day, especially here in the east up into New England, and we do get a bit of a glancing blow with this very cold air down here into the southeast. So, I think most places in the Carolinas likely won't get out of the 40s. Virginia, most places not getting out of the 30s, but definitely much nicer weather back here towards the southern plains and kind of the mid-south from Mississippi over to Alabama. And then, of course, definitely in Florida, nice weather. As for the kind of Great Lakes here, pretty average February weather, maybe slightly above average going into tomorrow. Tomorrow night, again, what's left of that cold air will kind of get trapped here into the east. And then other than that, we'll start to begin that warm-up back out west as we go into next week. And you definitely see that take over going into Sunday. Look at these warmer temperatures returning here with that warm southerly flow, helping to bring those temperatures up and really above average for most of the country here going into our Sunday afternoon. So taking a look at that temperature anomaly, of course, going into this weekend, we have this brutally cold air here in the east. Luckily, though, that begins to moderate as we get through this weekend and we start next week going into, this is Monday afternoon here. Look at this really warm air working its way in. Temperatures out here in the sections of the plains, 20 degrees above average from what you would expect this time of year, and then about 5 to 10 degrees above average here along the east coast. That will continue through the first half of next week, really, before we likely get another storm system that we're going to have to deal with, and then potentially a second storm system going into Super Bowl weekend, which I think is looking kind of interesting right now, and we'll talk about that, although not too much, but I will mention it nonetheless. So we're going to have that very clear weather and that warmer weather after this weekend, and we should stay relatively dry before that next system going into, especially next Tuesday. It looks like this gets going here in the southern plains, and that will likely continue tracking across the country through the middle part of next week, bringing some rain with it, maybe some storms, maybe a little bit of snow, although the system doesn't look like a blockbuster storm, to be honest. It just kind of looks like your average storm system that you'd be dealing with here in or with this kind of pattern that we've had through January. It looks very similar to those storms. Rain here for pretty much most of the east, maybe some thunderstorms here in the southeast, and maybe a little bit of snow here on the northern side of this, but right now there's really just not much cold air to work with here. And then after that, we get another system, I think, going into Super Bowl weekend, and this one we have a lot of question marks about. Our models have shown some different things, but if we're going to get snow again here in the east, I think this would be the one to watch going into Super Bowl weekend. We have a little bit more cold air to work with and maybe a bit more of a favorable storm track, but right now, really not all that much to talk about with that one. So, all things said and done, we have much quieter weather coming up here for the next kind of 5 days or so before we bring back some of that stormy weather, but even then I don't expect major impacts with that next rainmaker going into the middle of next week. So sorry if this was kind of a boring video. Some of you might be kind of happy it was a boring video because we've had such a crazy week, and myself included. I've had a crazy week, and covering all this has been a ton of fun. But it has been a little bit draining as well, to be honest with you. So looking forward to having a bit more of a quiet period going through this weekend before getting back to it next week with some more of that active weather. So with all that said, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Friday, and I will see you all tomorrow.